The following may contain language that is not suitable for all audiences. It's time for the Low Fact Podcast. I hate sounding like a broken record, but we do need something manlier to announce our intro.
I think the bells are extremely manly.
Yeah, if you say so. So, is there anything big during the week that happened that you kind of want to recap?
No, just like Joe Biden's daughtery behavior.
Well, that's a given. These are the few things that kind of caught my eye. Kristi Noem, who was like the darling of the right wing folks for, standing up to the coronavirus stuff, not shutting down her state, saying she's going to go hard and sign some bill.
That's right. Is she the QAnon one?
No, she's the governor of South Dakota.
Okay.
She's quite lovely.
Really?
Yeah.
So you'd do her?
And her, well, no, because that would be indelicate. But she's quite lovely, and so is her daughter. But so anyway, yeah, the big darling of the conservative groups. People were thinking that she might have a chance to go into higher national office. Has run into some difficulties because I guess the South Dakota legislature proposed some bill that would prevent biological boys from playing in girls' sports,
right? Like
other states, like Mississippi, and I think a couple other states did that as well. And I think even 2 weeks before the proverbial shit hit the fan, she was tweeting out saying, "Yeah, I'm excited to sign this bill. We need to protect our girls." And then for some odd reason, she vetoed it.
Why?
Well, she ended up doing something that was essentially a veto.
Why?
Well, the prevailing estimation is,
and wisdom,
is that her advisors, a couple of her advisors got to her, who are moneyed interest at like Amazon and various people were.
And they're like, "Oh, this isn't going to be popular."
I guess they didn't like it, and so she decided to do some kind of thing that was essentially a veto, and then she's been trying to explain herself ever since.
Oh shit!
Saying that I've talked to lots of legal experts that say this was be bad. She was on Tucker Carlson. It was actually kind of funny, and I think now.
Did you see the Tucker Carlson interview?
I did, and now it's kind of funny in that she's saying that the people that are poo-pooing her are is like cancel culture. So she's a little bit entrenched.
Wow, so she's being canceled by the people that criticize cancel culture?
No, she's not being canceled at all. They're just saying, what the hell? She's calling it. She's saying she's being canceled. Another funny thing, well, not funny, but another odd thing, because there's been a whole move, especially by Joe Biden and his administration to curtail the Second Amendment, 2A. I thought it was quite.
They're trying to get that.
I thought it was quite fortuitous that there were 2 mass shooting events right around the time that he was trying to put that forth, and so they could capitalize on that. But the funny thing or the coincidental thing, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that when Joe Biden decided to do his heavily stage managed press conference the other day,
did it come up?
It did, and his answer, like many of his answers, even though they seemed to be prepared and he was reading off of, it looks like the 2A stuff is going to be, they got to find the right time. It's a sequence thing. So now there's a whole bunch of rumblings going on in the I guess what is called the corporate media about how that might not happen.
I saw an interview with Kamala Harris where she was saying this isn't about us trying to take away people's guns, which is what they always say.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, isn't it it's like it's a slippery slope. No, I mean, that's always the defense. That's always this isn't about taking people's guns. This isn't about taking people's guns. And I think it's pretty black and white.
Well, I would rather not have a discussion about Second Amendment or all this stuff. It's just kind of
You're doing the
it's the recap of stuff that kind of struck me, because, well, first of all, there's plenty of information out there, whether you're for the Second Amendment or for the repeal of the Second Amendment or quote unquote common sense gun control. I'd rather not get into it because
it's always the same.
Well, yeah, and people should. I don't know if anybody. Well, you know my stance on it. So.
I do, yeah, and and people. It's always the same. People are in two different camps and pretty entrenched, I think.
Yeah.
So really not too. I think you're right. I mean, there's probably not too much to really talk about.
And and the funny thing is when you're trying to get someone off a position, this is more of a philosophical discussion that I was going to save for later, but we could just kind of mention it now. Trying to point out people's hypocrisy or faults in their logic or whatever, or holes in their logic, that ain't going to help. People want what they want, and they'll just, use whatever they can to justify it, and there's really no way to bring them off of that unless they're actually going to be honest and, actually have a discussion or a debate. And, for all what people say, like, oh, you need to hang out with people that aren't in the same camp as you, and there needs to be healthy discussion.
Who does that?
Well, that's the point. Nobody does that.
You don't. You hang out with people that you're comfortable with. So what are you going to do? You're going to hang out with somebody that's
not even just that. I'm just saying that you don't want to talk to somebody who has a different opinion from you. Nobody really does, and you don't really want to engage with someone. Most people. With someone who's going to sit there and say, well, your logic is faulty, or how can you? So, trying to convince someone that their stance is nothing more than an emotional stance is kind of, I think, a tall order.
But I wonder if historically,
yes, it was the same.
No,
it was the same. They're just sitting there saying, well, no, before we had these people that would talk to each other and all that, blah, blah,
friends
blah, blah,
that
that.
were like very at odds with each other their whole lives.
Yeah. Well, that's very rare.
Probably it's rare enough that they talk about it though.
I mean, the only time that I would think of that you would have people of differing political opinions or, just differing opinions would be if there was a gigantic war and there was a draft. And so, didn't matter. Everybody's coming in because we need bodies.
Right.
And in that sense, yeah, you're going to meet, and it still kind of goes on with our all volunteer force. There are people of different backgrounds, especially in the officer corps and the enlisted corps. But, this whole idea that people will sit there and be civil and talk to each other and be able to debate points and stuff like that, I think gives us a little bit more credit than we actually deserve. You and I have been talking a lot about intelligence, and I've come to the conclusion that intelligence, it really don't matter. Maybe we are smart or the smartest animals on the planet, but that's trying to take one thing and say, oh, this is, this intelligence is going to override all other things, and it's not. If it did, no one would run towards gunfire because the intelligent thing to do is to, find some cover.
I just don't think that, I thought people were a lot more intelligent than they are. I mean, and you hear about certain people, certain places, certain companies or whatever, and you have an idea of what it's going to be like. And the reality is, I think people are just really similar across the board.
Well, sure.
Wherever you go. And I don't think you have to be that smart to survive in society.
Well, that's the whole point about being in society.
It's just like...
The whole point about being in society is to make life easier. And it is, to a certain extent. I mean, think about it. Think of all the people that would starve and die if you had to catch all your own food and no one was going to share.
There would be a lot of dead people.
But, but we have, quote unquote, evolved really kind of to look after each other in family units, and then now they're trying to there are some people thinking that you can expand that group into like country units or state units or whatever,
Right.
And I'm like, that's just not going to happen. because, if it's down to somebody that I know that's in my family, hell, they could even be a second cousin that I've never met before.
Really?
They might stand a better chance than some Joe Schmo out there that I've never met before either.
Even if there's just the family connection, but they're really not family.
What do you mean, like by marriage?
Well, a second cousin.
That's still relatively close.
Yeah. What if they're a freaking dropkick, though?
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to go into a dissertation about like the effectiveness of family because
we don't have time.
Well, that and if I never thought of myself as a conservative, but in terms of family, I am very. Family's number one, period. Or as you like to say, full stop.
So anyway, I've interrupted your roundup. So that's number 2, the Second Amendment.
The third one was watching, parts of Joe Biden's press conference.
Oh, I didn't watch his press conference.
I watched parts of it, and it was...
Was it entertaining, at least?
Yeah, in that you could totally tell that it was very heavily stage managed.
Oh.
You could tell very much so that questions were already given to him, answers were already prepared, and even though that they were prepared, he still kind of stumbled.
Wow.
But, that's a tough job. That's a tough job for somebody that's in their 40s. This guy's in his 80s.
Yeah.
And so, there's all the theories about, whether he's like Woodrow Wilson after he had the stroke.
But he just got elected.
Oh, okay. So the comparison is that after Woodrow Wilson had his stroke, basically his doctor and his wife shunted him off from the rest of the world and was doing stuff for him.
Right.
So basically you had Mrs. Wilson and Woodrow's doctor being the president of the United States.
Oh my goodness.
And the president was just like, ugh. And so there's theories that Mrs. Biden and the various camps that are trying to get power or hold on to power is, keeping him shuttered away and getting their stuff going.
Well, he's been shuttered away from the get-go. I mean, he was shuttered away during coronavirus. He didn't do any rallies, really. And,
hey, that's whatever. And going off on the premise that elections kind of are, above board.
Uh-huh.
And all the people that supposedly voted for him, and he won the election. I do not have faith in the electorate because that's some weird folks.
But I don't think that's true, though.
Well, it's. I think a while ago it came out that a lot of shenanigans have been going on in Georgia. Oh, that's another thing. Georgia just passed a law to try and keep other shenanigans going from what the legislature is saying, and the opponents of it are saying, this is just to prevent black people from having any power. And that could be true, but if you use the argument that you can't use voter ID on an election, like you shouldn't have to be able to show your ID because black people don't have IDs, I think is a big insult to black people.
Yeah, it is.
Because so you're saying black people don't drive, they don't have bank accounts, they don't own houses, they don't go to bars, they don't buy alcohol or guns or anything.
They don't have ID. I mean, come on.
Well, right. I mean, saying that just kind of makes it sound like black people are just a bunch of idiots that these folks have to take care of. And from all the black people I've met, that is seriously not the case.
I saw something on, I think Tucker Carlson was talking about how basically the Democrats are trying to push forward laws now that essentially will solidify their ability to be able to steal elections.
Well, that's
the same thing.
That's a right-wing talking point. I mean,
yeah,
that's the scaremongering going on the right to say you need to get involved because if you don't, then they're going to make this country into hell on earth or whatever.
They had some soundbite of Chuck Schumer talking about how he wasn't going to let the states dictate, and I'm just like, but there's federalism, and
that's kind of the way the system is. So you're basically saying you want to change the nature of the United States. Hey, if you can do it, have at it. And for the other sheep and goats like myself, if we have any power and we let that happen, whatever shit befalls us, that's our fault.
Well, I think the shit's already falling out of the sky right now.
It's been,
and it will continue to.
Sure, but that's not anything new. I mean, throughout history, you see that there's a small minority of people that have everything, and everybody else, the other 90+% of the people, are just struggling to survive in various degrees of discomfort and misfortune. And that's all throughout history. So to think that anything's different now, it might have been for a little while, but even then, right? And the last thing that I thought was kind of funny was the whole immigration thing. First of all, if the powers that be thought that immigration was a problem, the illegal immigration, it wouldn't happen. So all this talk about being decent and kind and generous and all that junk, that's total BS. I think that it's a desire to have a whole lot of cheap labor coming in so that they can have more stuff. And the examples that I use for that are baseball, the technical visas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like the most unskilled of the unskilled. I mean, there was a big influx of foreign players, South American, Latin American, Asian in Major League Baseball starting in the late 90s. And why did they do that? Well, let me tell you, it's because those players would play in the United States for cheaper than an American person.
Dude, that's like the Australians and New Zealanders working in England.
Well, that was another point, like the technical visas.
Yeah.
You get all these people coming in from India and Russia and all these folks with their technical backgrounds, and the statement is, well, Americans don't major in math and science, so we need to go out to these other countries and get them. I'm just like, that's a load of crap. Those people believe that might be a way to get their foot in the door, so you can pay them less, and they'll work well.
Yep.
They'll work hard just like anybody else for a chance to be able to stay. So, and the thing that I was going to say about the illegal immigration talking point was that Papa Joe was sitting there talking about how, the surges aren't anything new. All the stuff that's going on it started before. It's Trump's fault, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And I was like, okay. And then I like to listen to public radio, which a friend of mine used to love to call American Pravda. And lo and behold, they're talking about how, the illegal immigration stuff, no, it's not as bad as all the scary right-wing folks are talking about. They're just trying to load you full of crap and boogeymen because it's been bad before, and this is just something that was inherited. And I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying it's kind of funny that the media, who hated the previous guy, loved this guy. And I'm not saying that because I love the first guy. I'm just saying I think the media should hate every guy.
But they're so biased.
Well, that's my point. They should be biased against anyone that's in power.
But they're not.
Well, because they feel that they have common interest. I mean, look.
It's like a love affair, dude.
Look, if truth be told, I would go full tilt for not the middle, but the end goal of what Karl Marx's communism is, where there's no countries, no one's no power, no nothing. Everyone's just kind of live. It's like a weird form of anarchy, as I understand it, right? No governments, nobody at the top, none of this junk, right?
Sounds like a John Lennon song.
Well, it is, and that's the way Karl said that communism would go. You'd have to have a time, the interim, where there's all this revolution and all this junk, and then people would slowly go towards there's no governments, no one's got more power, everyone's pretty much equal.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want and just live your life and be great.
Fantastic.
Exactly. I'm like, hell yeah. Let's go for it,
it's
but
never going to happen, though.
I doubt it. It won't happen unless you get rid of family, number one, family
I just don't think people
and friends.
Yeah, exactly. People don't operate that way. So you can't change people's nature. I don't think.
Sure, you can. You don't think that society, the thousands of years of living in society, in groups, have changed people's nature from being these animals in small groups just kind of going out and foraging for food by themselves?
Oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah. But that took a long time. I don't think we can change. If we can change it, it would have to be an incremental change over eons.
I don't think it would take quite that long, but yeah, it takes a while.
I don't know how long an eon is.
Isn't that 1,000 years?
Okay. Yeah. Eons. Then that's right.
Well, I know a millennium is 1,000 years.
Eon's probably longer. But anyway, my point is that I don't think people it's achievable.
Yeah, probably not. So this
greedy.
This gets there's many reasons, and there's I don't think we're going to be able to bring anything new to that.
We're pretty much out of time anyway.
Well, I thought the last thing that we talk about is something that kind of makes me a little. It's on the same vein as the argumentation through the extreme. You know, someone says, "Oh, well, you know, this shouldn't happen," and you'll come up with like, "Well, it happened this one time," and then all of a sudden, this argument's supposed to be just bunk.
Yes.
And I'm not just picking on you; I do it too. I dislike that going the other way, right? Because it's really kind of.
Oh, you mean like the majority?
Well, no, going the other way, and it's not. This is not to poo-poo cops, teachers, soldiers, you know, people trying to work hard, do their thing, blah blah. Because that's most of us. But to sit there and say, like when people try to talk about how important teachers are, they always bring up that one teacher you had that changed your life, and pretty much everyone has at least one. Some are very fortunate to have a few.
Yeah.
But to sit there and say that all teachers are like that example, the paramount example,
yeah,
just really kind of makes me go, huh?
Who was yours? Mine was Mr. Park.
I can't really. I had
my English teacher.
I had several, and the reason why I disliked a lot of them was because they didn't think that I was putting forth full effort a lot of times.
Which is true.
It is true. And so I was ridden extra hard by a lot of teachers.
Oh shit! I had a really great geography teacher as well, but I can't remember his name now. Isn't that terrible?
No, it's okay, and you know. Because yeah, I mean, I was never the type. I would do enough to get by, and what I thought enough to get by was like to get the A,
You son of a bitch.
or the B.
Do you know how hard I had to struggle just to get a B or a B plus?
I do remember one.
And that was a B plus in New Zealand grades too.
I remember one time. I had it was in college actually. One of my professors was sitting there saying, you know, you need to put forth a little bit more effort. And I was like, don't I have enough? I was like, well, yeah, you do, but I'd kind of like to see a little bit more.
I think as a teacher, if you're really a teacher that's worth the salt, you have to want that from your students.
Yeah, and there are plenty
or at
of
least
them.
from your good students.
There are plenty of them, but you know, it's the combination, right? I mean, I don't think that every child is a genius, and I don't think that every cop or soldier is a hero just by virtue of being a cop or a soldier.
That was one of the topics. It wasn't really a topic, but it was something that I thought of when you use the word hero. It was just the overuse of the word hero. It's not really a topic. It's just it's an opinion. Which is that word gets way overused.
Well, yeah, there was a guy who had a funny joke. I forget the guy, but I remember him saying that he got a whole lot of grief over it because he was telling a joke about heroes and like, yeah, you know, the fighter pilot and the guy, you know, sitting there getting ready to go bomb the enemy and all that junk, going into danger and harm's way. It's like, okay, he's a hero, but what about that guy that's just kind of sitting there pointing? You can go. Or, you know, not many people know this, but the military has tons of jobs, and it's not all being at the pointy end of the stick. And so, you know, people don't realize that
that's a very small percentage, the pointy end of the stick.
It's very small, but they teach you that you might end up being the pointy end of the stick because the fight might come to you. So everybody's taught a little bit of that combat stuff. But there are plenty of people in the military that you would think are not militaristic. You know, there are people that are basically like store clerks, at a convenience store, like cashiers at a convenience store.
I could do that.
Mailman.
I could be like the army bookkeeper.
Truck drivers.
Truck driver sounds like a good one. I could do that one.
There's a lot of them. But, you know, most of the time you just don't think that we're kind of getting away from it, but that's just, that's just the point. I was like, let's kind of stop overusing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just detracts from.
Well, it does. It detracts from like the really good teachers, the really good cops, the really good soldiers, the really good firefighters. I'm sure there are a lot of them out there. But if you go off on the 80-20 rule,
yeah, then
no.
80-20 seems generous when it comes to when I think about my teachers.
Well,
actually no, that's not fair. I think 20% of my teachers were pretty good.
Well, that's the whole point. In any organization, 80% is complete crap. 20% are good. They're professionals.
Yep.
And in that 20%, there's that 1% that everyone tries to catch. Everyone tries to be like.
All right, time for some chips and salsa.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll come back later.
Bye bye. Catch you later, mates.